She didn't know I was still in the driveway. I saw it through the window, third floor, left balcony, her pouring 2 glasses of wine. Not 3. 2. Then she laughed like she hadn't spent the last hour pretending I didn't exist. She didn't even look for me when I left. And if you're wondering how I ended up hiding behind my own car like some soaked raccoon, I'll explain. But just know this. I wasn't planning to snoop. I was planning to go home and cry into leftover Chinese food. But the rain started and I couldn't drive with foggy glasses, and then I looked up. She was already pouring drinks. To be clear, I left 5 minutes earlier. I told her I had a stomachache. She didn't stop me, didn't follow, just nodded. But then, I guess when you're entertaining your boss, little stomachaches don't matter. This was supposed to be a professional thing. That's what she said when she begged me to come. Please come, Elijah. Just one night. It's networking. I need a husband tonight. That phrase haunted me. I need a husband tonight. Not want. Not you. Just the role. So I showed up. I ironed the itchy shirt she likes. The one with the sleeves that strangle my wrists. I even brought her boss that imported chocolate he mentioned once, because I'm that kind of idiot. And what did I get? I stood alone next to a cheese board that smelled like armpit while she laughed at stories I'd never heard. She introduced me to 2 people the entire night. Both were interns. She forgot one of their names mid-sentence. At 9:13 p.m., she touched her boss's shoulder and whispered something that made his ears go red. At 9:17, I left. I was going to leave forever. Like, that was it. Done. Drove 2 blocks, pulled over near a mailbox, tried to cry but I couldn't. Just stared at the rearview mirror and thought, I really brought her boss Swiss truffles. Huh? Then it started to rain. And something told me, go back. You forgot something. That's when I realized. My charger. My only working charger was still in her purse. Classic me. So I looped back. Quietly. Didn't even pull into the driveway. Parked by the hedge. Started to text her. And that's when the light flicked on. Top balcony. And I saw her silhouette. She poured 2 glasses of red wine. And handed one to a man I swear wasn't there before. I know what you're thinking. Why didn't I just leave? Why didn't I stop torturing myself? The truth is, I wish I had. But once you see something crack, you can't help pressing on it. You want to know how deep it goes. How long it's been broken. So I sat there in the car, rain threading down the windshield like veins, watching her hand off the second wine glass to a tall figure in a navy blazer. He moved like he belonged there. She smiled like you did. I didn't recognize him. Not right away. But then he turned slightly toward the glass doors, just enough for the light to catch his face, and something hit me like a punch to the gut. He wasn't her boss. He was her ex. Dorian. The one she swore had traumatized her into therapy. The man she said ghosted her after stealing money and manipulating her for years. I remembered his name because she used to mutter it in her sleep during our first year of marriage. I always thought it was some kind of subconscious closure process, like her brain was cleaning house. But no. The man I'd been led to hate was now drinking Cabernet on a balcony with my wife at her boss's party, while I sat freezing in a parked car like a soaked dog outside a wedding I was never invited to. My fingers started shaking. Not from rage. From that cold kind of betrayal that doesn't make you yell, it makes you numb. I needed proof. Not for the police. Not even for divorce court. For myself. Because if I didn't get it now, she would gaslight me later like she always did. You misunderstood. It was nothing. You're overthinking again. Not this time. I tapped open my phone and did something I'd never done in 10 years with her. I hit record on the voice memo app and slipped the phone halfway out the window, letting it pick up the audio from above. I didn't know what I'd hear. I honestly wasn't prepared for what I did. At first, it was just muffled clinks of glasses and the low hum of ambient conversation. Then a giggle. Hers. Not the fake one she uses at staff meetings, the old one. The one from when we first met. That laugh had been dead for years. I didn't realize until I heard it again. Then, his voice. You really think he's gone for good? Silence. My lungs stopped working. I didn't know which answer would hurt more, yes or no. Then Darla responded. He's probably crying in the car. That's what he does. He'll go write some passive-aggressive email draft to himself and pretend it's closure. They both laughed. They laughed. Like I was some harmless little cartoon character they could mock while sipping wine in a $4 million house. That's when the rain hit harder, like the sky wanted me to leave. Like even the weather was telling me, this isn't where you belong anymore. But I couldn't move. Because the next thing he said wasn't funny. It was cold. Direct. Did you bring it? She didn't ask what he meant. She didn't say what or where. She just said, "It's in the bag. Same one I always keep in the trunk." You'd think I would have driven off by now. That's what a sane person does, right? They hear their wife mocking them with her ex-boyfriend at a party she begged them to attend. They turn the key, wipe their eyes, and let the car take them anywhere but here. But I didn't drive away. I sat there in the driveway for maybe 2 full minutes after hearing that line. "It's in the bag. Same one I always keep in the trunk." And I realized something else that hurt just as bad as the betrayal itself. She wasn't afraid of me coming back. She didn't even consider it. That's how confident she was that I would either stay gone or stay silent. Because that's what I always did before. I made everything okay. I found reasons to forgive. I folded. But this time, something cracked. I left the car door open when I stepped out. Didn't care about the rain anymore. My shoes squelched in the gravel as I rounded the corner to her sedan, the black Honda she never let me drive because it's the only nice thing I bought myself. The car she always said had a sticky trunk latch, like it was glued shut by history. But when I got to the back, I lifted the handle, and it popped open with a soft click, like it was waiting for me. Inside was her gym bag. Not her usual one, the purple Adidas she kept for show, but an old brown leather duffel with a frayed handle and one broken zipper tooth. I hadn't seen it since before we were married. I honestly thought she'd thrown it out. The bag wasn't locked, just half-zipped. I looked around. No one. The rain was louder now, but it made me feel invisible. I crouched, unzipped the bag fully, and opened it. The first thing I saw was her passport, then a folded man's shirt that wasn't mine, then a burner phone, still powered on. I stood there in the rain, holding a stranger's button-up in one hand and a $20 prepaid phone in the other. I felt like I was inside a bad indie film, the kind with moody saxophones and no answers. The phone had no password, just a list of recent texts. I didn't even have to scroll. The last one was from Dorian. "If he leaves without asking questions, we can go tonight." The timestamp was 9 minutes ago. My stomach turned. I clicked open the thread. The entire conversation went back 2 weeks. They weren't just rekindling. They were planning something. Travel arrangements. Hotel names. New job offers for her under a different last name, his last name. Fake references. An accidental separation. One line caught my eye because it felt like a punch in the chest. "He's too fragile to fight. That's why this'll work." I remember gripping the edge of the trunk like it was the only thing keeping me from falling. It wasn't just that she was cheating. It wasn't just that she was leaving. It was that she had already decided I would lose quietly. The worst part? She was probably right. I had no plan. No strength. Just a soggy t-shirt, a shaking jaw, and a storm turning the night into static. I heard a door open above me. Voices. Fast ones. Footsteps. She was coming down. They were coming down. And I had 30 seconds to choose. Get in my car and vanish, or stay frozen and finally let this become the disaster it was meant to be. I didn't move. Because for the first time in a long time, I wanted the wreckage. I don't remember consciously closing the trunk. I must have done it out of instinct. 1 second I was standing there, rain soaking through the collar of my shirt, eyes locked on a bag full of betrayal, and the next, I heard the heavy metal thud of the trunk sealing like the end of a chapter one didn't even know I'd started. What came next didn't feel real. Their voices were closer now. Not panicked, not secretive. Just casual, almost cheerful. Hers had that pitch she used when she was flirting, but pretending not to. His had the hollow baritone of a man who knew how to win because he only ever played rigged games. I ducked behind my car like a coward. Or maybe like a hunter. I didn't even know anymore. She was barefoot. I saw that first, through the lattice of rain. Darla, barefoot in the driveway, laughing at something he said, holding her heels in one hand and a bottle of wine in the other. I thought of the girl I met 8 years ago, the one who only drank cider and hated wet grass, and wondered when she learned to love the feeling of mud between her toes. When she started smiling like this at men who weren't me. Then she stopped walking. Froze. I thought she'd seen me. My heart rammed against my ribs like it wanted out. But she was staring past me, eyes narrowed at her own car. I followed her gaze. Her back door was open. Barely, just a crack, but enough to draw suspicion. "Did you leave it like that?" Dorian asked. "No," she said immediately. "No, I don't. Wait." She stepped toward it, slowly. His hand instinctively reached for her arm, pulling her back just a little. For all his sleaze, he had the body language of a man trained to protect something. Or someone. That's when I heard it, a muffled cough from inside the car. I didn't know whether to bolt or announce myself. But then I heard it again. A cough, then a sniffle. Small, weak. And then Darla said something I will never forget for as long as I live. Oh my God. I left the tablet in there. She must have followed me out. She? Dorian's voice dropped low. She's not supposed to be awake. The back door creaked open wider. I couldn't see the angle, but I heard the sound of the leather seat shifting and a tiny gasp. Then a child's voice. Groggy. Disoriented. Mommy. The word cracked something inside me that hadn't been touched since my father's funeral. A little girl's voice. Maybe 4. Maybe 5. I had never seen her before. I didn't even know Darla had a child. She had always said she wanted to wait until the world calms down. I believed her. We'd even tried once. It didn't work, and the grief passed silently like a winter illness. But this child, this actual, living girl, had Darla's eyes. And she had my nose. For 3 full minutes, I couldn't breathe. Not metaphorically. I actually couldn't inhale. My lungs felt like plastic bags full of smoke. I crouched lower, dizzy, while the rain slicked my palms against the gravel. They hushed her. Told her to go back to sleep. I heard the shuffle of a blanket. A promise of pancakes in the morning. A toy being handed over. Then the door clicked closed. My wife had a child. My wife had our child. And she never told me. And now, she was preparing to disappear. I didn't sleep that night. I didn't even go home. I just drove. For hours. I didn't have a destination or a plan, just the kind of directionless momentum you get after your life's been cracked open and you're too numb to feel the blood. The rain stopped sometime around 3 a.m., but I kept driving long after the roads dried. I passed an abandoned gas station with one flickering sign. I watched a couple argue outside a diner. I sat in a Walmart parking lot for 28 minutes and never got out of the car. The only reason I turned back was because of a gut feeling, something primitive. Like my subconscious had stayed sharp while the rest of me unraveled. Something told me, she's already been to the house. I got back just after 6 in the morning. Dawn light was stretching weak pink fingers across the street. Everything was quiet. My driveway looked untouched. My front door still locked. Nothing seemed off until I stepped inside. My shoes squeaked on the kitchen floor, which had a faint trail of mud, small prints, too narrow for mine. I followed them to the table and froze. There was a piece of paper laid out perfectly square on the table, weighted down at one corner by a chipped mug we used to keep loose change in. The paper was a child's drawing, wobbly lines and odd proportions. Crayons. A sun in the corner. Grass. A little house. A figure with dark hair standing next to a smaller figure in a pink dress. The smaller figure was holding a red balloon. The larger figure was labeled, Mommy. But there was a third figure, standing far away, almost off the edge of the paper. Alone. No label. Just a stickman with blue lines dripping down from his head. Tears. They had drawn me. The forgotten man. There was no note. No explanation. But something about that picture made me shake harder than anything I'd seen the night before. Because it meant one thing, more than anything else. The child knew who I was. She recognized me. Which meant Darla must have shown her pictures. Talked about me. Maybe even let her hear my voice on speakerphone. And yet, she still chose to keep her hidden. To keep me hidden from her. I stumbled into the living room and dropped onto the couch, holding the drawing in both hands like it was a piece of sacred evidence. That's when I noticed something else. The house key. My spare, the one I kept in the bottom drawer of the console table, was now lying in the middle of the coffee table, gleaming under a slant of early sunlight. She'd been here. She'd used my own spare key. And she had brought the child inside my home, not to introduce her, not to make amends, but to leave me a goodbye gift in crayon form. I should have called someone. A friend. A therapist. Maybe even a lawyer. But instead, I did the most broken thing I've ever done in my life. I curled up on that couch and clutched that drawing to my chest like it could somehow make up for years of deception. I don't remember falling asleep, but I woke up around noon to the sound of my phone buzzing on the floor. It was a text. No name. Just a number. You weren't supposed to find out like this. My fingers hovered over the screen. I wanted to scream, to type something brutal, final. But before I could even form words, another message came through. She wants to meet you. She's been asking about the man in the photo. And that's when I realized Darla wasn't done with me. Not even close. I didn't answer the texts. I didn't know how. I didn't even know who I'd be responding to. Darla? Dorian? Some handler managing their twisted little escape plan? My body had technically woken up, but my mind was still back in that moment, staring at a crayon drawing of my daughter, a daughter I never met, waving at me from the wrong side of memory. The house felt haunted now, not by ghosts, but by the tension of every moment I thought was real and now couldn't trust. The photos on the walls, the anniversary card she gave me last year, the dumb pair of his and hers mugs with our initials, they all felt staged. Like props in a life I rented but never really owned. By evening, I finally replied. Where and when? I got a location in seconds. Not her house. Not a public place. It was an address I didn't recognize. Some out-of-the-way co-op art studio tucked behind a used furniture warehouse, 20 minutes from downtown. The kind of place where people sell broken clocks as statements and charge extra for existential dread. It was already dark when I pulled up. The building was half covered in ivy and had a red door with a sign that said Studio 7, by appointment only. There were no lights on inside, but the door was unlocked. And inside, there was only one chair, one table, and a single manila envelope sitting neatly on top. No one else. No Darla. No child. Just the envelope. I stared at it for a long time before finally reaching for it, half convinced it would explode or burst into confetti labeled, "You've been replaced." But when I opened it, what fell out was worse than anything I'd imagined. It was a letter, handwritten, on our old stationery. The one we used for Christmas thank you notes the year we hosted her whole family and burned the turkey so badly we ended up ordering Thai food. I recognized the handwriting immediately. It was mine, but the date was from nearly 4 years ago, and it was signed Daniel. I don't know how long I stood there staring at that name. At first, I thought it was some elaborate forgery, a trick, a deep fake of paper and ink. But no, the handwriting was mine, down to the pressure points, the little way I crossed my T's at an upward slant. And the letter wasn't short. It was a full page of writing, emotional, desperate, full of longing. It talked about regret, about choosing the wrong path, about missing her, Darla, but not as my wife. The letter made references I didn't understand. It mentioned a gallery opening in Barcelona, a night in Lisbon, a miscarriage that never happened, not with me. The final line read, "If I ever come back, I hope you'll recognize the part of me that never truly left. Forever, Daniel." I stumbled back from the table, my hands shaking violently now, the paper floating to the floor like a leaf falling from the wrong tree. I couldn't breathe, not because of the words, but because the memories started trickling in, just slivers, flashes, like still frames from a film I didn't know I'd starred in. A red dress on a balcony, a hotel room with cracked tiles, the smell of jasmine and cigarette smoke, and her voice, softer, younger, saying, "If you leave now, we won't find each other again." I pressed my fingers to my temples hard, trying to force something to align, but nothing made sense. I was Elijah. I am Elijah. But the letter was in my handwriting, and it was signed Daniel. That's when I heard the door open behind me, and her voice, low and calm and horrifyingly casual. "I didn't think you'd remember this soon." I didn't answer her at first. I just stared, paralyzed, as she stepped into the dim light of the studio, not dressed like the woman I saw at the party, but in old jeans and a paint-stained sweater that somehow made her look younger and more tired at the same time. There were no games in her eyes now, no smirks, no defensive posture, just something that looked like resignation. Like she had rehearsed this moment in her head 1,000 times, and now that it was real, she wasn't sure which script to use. "I was hoping you wouldn't open the letter," she said quietly, closing the red door behind her. "At least not yet." I couldn't speak. My mouth felt full of needles. "You still don't remember it all, do you?" she continued, stepping closer. Her voice was calm, too calm, like she was talking to a patient who had just come out of surgery. "It's not your fault. We forced it down too deep." I blinked. "Forced what? What down?" "I didn't write that letter." I finally croaked out, my throat dry and cracking. I don't even know who Daniel is." She smiled, not cruelly, but with the kind of sadness that comes with the truth someone stopped trying to hide. "You were Daniel," she said. "You were. Or a version of him. It's complicated." My knees nearly gave out. I backed into the table, gripping the edge like a lifeline. "Stop. Just stop with the riddles." "It's not a riddle," she said gently. "It's a reboot." Those words hit me like a blunt object. My stomach turned. "For years ago, you made a choice," she continued. "We were living in Spain. You were burned out, paranoid. You kept saying people were watching us. You'd stay up all night writing letters to your past self, like it was a confession you'd never mail. Then one day, you told me you wanted to try something called a reset experience. She said the words like they were familiar, like I should recognize them. I didn't. You found this program, she went on. Some private, experimental project? You said you'd only do it if I gave you my blessing. I didn't want you to. I begged you not to, but you said it was the only way to start over, to erase the rot without erasing the core of you. I shook my head violently, backing away from her. That's not real. That's not. What are you even talking about? It wiped your memory, Eli, she said, using my name like a gentle betrayal. It didn't delete who you were. It just scattered it, fractured it into something that could live a quiet life again. No, my voice cracked. No, that's insane. You think I'm just some broken identity that, what, got rebooted like an old laptop? She nodded. I started laughing. I had to. It was either that or scream. And what? You just moved on. Got bored waiting for your broken husband to wake up and decided to shack up with your ex. Her expression didn't change. But she stepped closer, finally. Dorian's not my ex, she said. He's part of the project. A handler. Someone meant to observe. Keep tabs. But we got too close again. We weren't supposed to. I was dizzy now. The walls felt like they were pulsing. And the child? What about the little girl? You hid her from me. My own daughter. She swallowed hard. For the first time, she looked like she might actually cry. She doesn't know the whole truth. She just knows you're someone special. Someone who used to make her laugh. We were waiting for you to remember enough, to become safe again. Safe. That word echoed in my skull like a war drum. I don't believe you, I said finally, every cell in my body trembling. This is some elaborate lie. You're gaslighting me. You're trying to paint me as broken so I won't fight you. Then she said something that destroyed what little sanity I had left. We told you, she whispered, her voice shaking now. We warned you there might be bleed-through. That certain words or places or faces would trigger you. That's why you recognized her eyes. That's why you wrote that letter, years before you became Elijah. I looked down at the letter again. My handwriting. My rhythm. But a different man's name. I was supposed to bring you here slowly, she continued. Rebuild you carefully. But then something changed. You got too close too fast. You came to the party. You watched us. You weren't supposed to see anything yet. My chest heaved. I felt nauseous, panicked, like the walls were closing in. But what she said next shattered the last barrier between belief and madness. You asked for this, Daniel, she said, barely above a whisper. You asked us to let you forget. You begged us to let you start again. But you never stopped being dangerous to yourself. And now, you're waking up too soon. The silence after her last words was the longest I've ever felt. It wasn't just soundless, it was weightless. Like time was waiting for me to catch up. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know who I was. I didn't even know if I wanted to know anymore. Elijah. Daniel. Were those just names layered over damage? Masks passed between versions of me like old coats? I don't care what the program says, I said finally, voice raw. I don't care about resets or handlers or memory scatter. I care about the little girl who drew me crying on the edge of her world. I care that I missed 5 birthdays I didn't know existed. And I care that every version of me, broken, burned out, or fractured, loved you enough to want to try again. She looked up at me, startled. Her lips parted, but she didn't speak. She just stared. Vulnerable. Real. Stripped of all the smirks, strategies, and polished lies. Darla. Not the curated wife. Not the project manager. Just Darla. I want to meet her, I said softly. Our daughter. I don't care if she calls me Elijah or Daniel or the sad guy from the driveway. I want to know her. I want to remember her. Or learn her all over again. Tears ran silently down her cheeks. She nodded. Okay, she whispered. Okay, but slow. We have to go slow. No more secrets, I said. Not from now on. Not one. I promise. The next morning, she brought her over. I met her for the first time, not in a courtroom or behind a curtain of guilt, but in a quiet park with ducks and popcorn and chalk-stained benches. Her name was Mira. She ran to me like she already knew who I was. Like some part of her remembered, even if I didn't. She didn't ask for explanations. She asked if I liked juice boxes, and if I could push her on the swing. That night, after she fell asleep in the back seat with graham crackers on her chin, I sat with Darla outside my house, our old house, and we watched the wind move through the trees. We didn't speak much. Eventually, I turned to her and asked, will you say it? Just once. The name. The one you called me, before. She looked at me for a long moment, then leaned her head on my shoulder and whispered it like a prayer. Daniel. And for the first time in years, maybe ever, I felt whole. Not perfect, not healed, but whole. Like maybe I didn't need to remember everything. Maybe it was enough to start again, not from scratch, but from the truth.